guys? It's your boy Uncle P. Yes, a bit weird, right? I'm walking out. It's actually raining. I'm about to sit outside the house and give you guys a show. You know what, guys? A lot has been happening. My wife just gave birth to a baby girl, so I'm super excited. So I'm gonna be sitting outside, literally holding my phone and talking to you guys about what's happening in the UFC because it's been extremely exciting. Okay, guys. So Francis versus Gain happened. Oh gosh, what a disappointing fight. Honestly, one expected Gain to come much harder and Francis to be more cautious. As a fight fan and a fighter, that fight was extremely disappointing. People keep asking me, who do you think won? Francis definitely won the fight purely because of takedowns. Do I think he should have won the fight because of takedowns? Definitely not. I think MMA's rules needs to change. Otherwise, wrestlers will always win fights as long as they take you down because that's what they specialize in. With that said, if you're going to beat the champion, you need to beat the champion. Clear. We need to be aware that you whooped that nigga's ass and you won that title. And Gain did not do that. I think he was worried about the power punch. Now, listening to all the other interviews that has happened afterwards, where people are talking about that Francis was injured, yada. Had I been a coach and I found out that the guy is injured on his knees and he shows up wrapped up like that, one thing for sure, most fighters, when they wrap up two knees, is because they're hiding one knee that has an injury. You kick it, okay? They're professionals in a way that, regardless of whether he kicked Francis's left leg, which was the front lead leg, and moved right, even if Francis had trained it, Gain could have still gone for that leg. But anyways, he did not, and he lost the fight. So let's leave that at that. Now, what happens now? Because everybody was trying to predict, okay, Francis will have leverage with it, if he wins this fight. Dana won't have anything to say because he will be the UFC champion and everything. And I've said it from day one. Literally, Francis has no leverage at all. If anybody knows Dana White, they know how this game is going to play out. And I'm going to give you guys a few predictions. I haven't been able to watch any MMA shows, any YouTube content. So these are my predictions of what's going to happen. And I honestly think this is how it plays out. So Jon Jones, okay, is coming back to the heavyweight. This plays out perfectly for Jon Jones. This is how Jon Jones avoids fighting Francis. Period. Okay? So in order for Jon Jones to fight Francis, he wants a lot of money, which the UFC is not willing to pay. Now Francis is injured for 9 months. So if he is injured and it's going to take 9 months for him to come back, he's going to need probably another 6 months or possibly longer to train and get back into actual form. So since the UFC has this thing of we cannot hold the division, a couple of things about to happen, okay? And this couple of things will play, specific fighters are about to come back into play. Derek Lewis, okay? Cyril Gane will also still be in play. Miocic, Stipe will come back into play, okay? So how is this going to play? In the end of the day, somebody needs to become champion, and everybody wants to see Jon Jones in the heavyweight division. This becomes the easiest way Jon Jones becomes champion in the heavyweight division without having to fight Francis. So you're about to hear Dana White in the next couple of months, and I'm predicting this in the next 2 months, 3 months, announcing a heavyweight bout, okay, for the preliminary. Now, before the preliminary belt is being put there, so that nobody disrespects the preliminary belt and says, yada, these things are just pathetic. Stipe is either going to fight Jon Jones for the #1 contender. Cyril Gane is going to fight either Derek. Now, because Derek Lewis was beaten by Cyril Gane with ease, if he wins his next fight, he's going to put himself in the talks. So several things may happen. Either I don't see Jon Jones fighting Derek Lewis. I just don't see. Dana White literally looks at that matchup and assumes that, you know what, Jones goes through Derek Lewis with ease. Now, in order for them to make this thing of, well, there's a possibility that Jon Jones might have possibly beaten Francis, let's give him Derek Lewis, who's a heavy puncher. Who's a heavy puncher? Right. Cool. He beats Derek Lewis. He proves that he can go against heavyweight heavy punchers. Because Cyril Gane had already beat Derek Lewis, that doesn't really do anything. So there's two ways they can play this game. How they're going to play it, Easy. John Jones versus Stipe. Either for the interim title, because Stipe, one, has a title defense that is owed to him. You see how that plays out? Who's Stipe going to fight? He can't fight Gane because Gane just came from losing. So either Jones comes, fights Gane for the #1 contender, which doesn't make sense because then they are going to drop the stocks of Gane. They don't want to drop Gane's stock. Gane is still the best heavyweight that they have currently that actually has the possible chance of beating John Jones. So what they're going to do is they're going to give John Jones the straight title fight versus Stipe, okay, while Cyril Gane is going to probably win 1 or 2 more fights and then have a unified title, although it's, well, we can't really call it unified. They will strip Francis from his title. Cyril Gane versus John Jones becomes the main fight for the heavyweight title. Regardless of who wins that fight, that's how it stays. By the time Francis is actually good enough to come back, his stock has dropped so much, he can't fight Tyson Fury in boxing. Because who is he right now? He's no longer going to be the champion. So this injury literally took away that one thing that Francis had against the UFC. Because he's out. He's medically out. And regardless of what the contract states, that you cannot strip a champion purely because of an injury, yada, 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 bada, 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 and all that shit. Cool. Let's assume that's the fact, and that is the truth, and that's exactly what happens, okay? He's out for over a year. His stock drops. So he comes back, he's going to either, one, have to get a warm-up fight. Who do you think the warm-up fight is going to be? I guarantee you, if Cyril Gane doesn't beat Jones and become champion by the time Francis comes back, he fights Cyril Gane again. And this time around, Francis doesn't beat Cyril Gane. Because he was dominating on the stand-up. And his wrestling isn't really that great. But then the heavyweight in Francis is too strong, extremely strong. Therefore, he used that strength. By the time he comes back after 12 months, that might no longer be a factor. Remember, what was our freakish heavyweight, our former heavyweight champion? His name is slipping my head. Former WWE champion Brock Lesnar. Same thing happened to him. Tough ass. Showed up there, just bullied everybody with wrestling and so forth. But in the end of the day, when it was figured out and he couldn't keep a fighter down, he couldn't win. And before you know it, his career went drrrr. The name stayed big. Whereas for Francis, his name isn't even that big. You see, Francis is very difficult to market because he's not a flamboyant athlete. He's not out there, he's not talking, he's not making a lot of noise. Therefore, his stock value only remains valid if he remains the champion, he remains active. Regardless of the fact you guys are going to say that he only fought once, he only fought 3 times in the last 3 years. That does not matter. As long as he's holding that title, he's still active, he remains valid. Right now, Francis is invalid, and the fact that he's got an injury that's going to keep him on the sidelines for a very long time literally takes his career. His career is dropping. Okay? So, guys, right now, forget about Francis. Forget about talking about Francis. Francis has screwed himself over. And I personally think this is purely from bad management and bad advice. And obviously the circumstances just lining up just ended up really bad for him. So John Jones versus Stipe is the next heavyweight fight that we should expect. Unless John Jones wants a warm-up bout, then yeah, John Jones gets a warm-up bout and then it immediately goes for that title. That's what's going to happen. Cyril Gane, have more hope of seeing the fight between Cyril Gane versus John Jones than John Jones fighting Francis. That fight is not going to happen. Let's forget about it. Let's move on from that fight. Francis's injury has literally given Dana White and the UFC the power that they needed in order to not have to handle this whole Francis situation. It will handle itself. Guys, I'm your boy Uncle P, and that's my opinion on what's about to happen on the Francis drama versus the UFC. As for the co-main event, guys, check out the next video that's coming up. I will tell you guys exactly what I think about the co-main event and how that fight should have ended and who should have been the true champion or the real winner on that fight. See you on the next one, guys. Sorry, guys. I just became a father. I've barely slept, and I'm trying to keep my words together. I literally woke up. It is It is 6:53, 7 p.m. and I just woke up because the kids had slept and I got an opportunity. Much love, man. Thank you guys. See you guys on the flip side. Yay!